Every generation has its favourite myth. For ours, it's simple bigger means smarter. AI is the new brain, and we keep trying to make it huge. The more data it eats, the more powerful it feels. At least that's what we tell ourselves. The tech world treats size like success. More GPUs, more data centers, more zeros on the budget. If it's bigger, it must be better, right? So we keep scaling up. Each new model is twice the size, 3 times the cost, and 10 times the hype. We believe that if we build big enough, we'll finally build something truly intelligent, smart enough to think for us, and maybe rich enough to save us. But here's the catch. This might be the first belief even AI can't prove with data. Everything looks perfect on paper, the charts go up, the headlines sound futuristic, but something doesn't add up. Are we really getting smarter, or just spending more for smaller returns? But every belief has a bill, and the bigger the dream, the higher the cost. Imagine you're raising a gigantic brain. Every time it learns, you pay for electricity. Every time it thinks, you pay for cooling. And every time it answers, you pay for CPU seconds. That's the economics of AI today. Intelligence comes at a price, a very high one. Behind every AI answer hides a hidden invoice. Massive data centers run day and night burning electricity just to keep models awake. Water systems cool their servers. GPU prices skyrocket, and supply chains tighten around one goal: feeding intelligence that never sleeps. Every layer of this network adds cost: the chips, the power, the training, the people maintaining it. So the smarter the system becomes, the more invisible labor it demands, human and material. That's the irony of automation. The machines are learning, but the planet is paying. The largest models now consume enough energy to power a small town, and operational costs grow exponentially. But profits not nearly as fast. The smarter the system, the thicker the bill. The more advanced the model, the thinner the margins. A clear paradox emerges. We're building extraordinary intelligence without generating proportional returns. And this paradox runs deeper than numbers. The more we chase smart, the more we seem to drift away from sensible. Every upgrade feels like progress until we see the cost line overtaking the benefit line. We built systems to think faster than humans, yet somehow we're the ones working harder to pay their bills. The dream of automation was supposed to simplify. Instead, it multiplies the cost of thinking. Intelligence, once a symbol of efficiency, now becomes an expense category. And yet, from the outside, none of this seems to matter. Because on the surface, it all still looks like progress. On the surface, everything still looks fine. AI seems to be driving the whole economy. In the US, much of this year's growth comes from AI investment, buying chips, building data centers, expanding infrastructure. Tech giants look like they're in an arms race, throwing money, power, and belief into the next big model. Hundreds of billions of parameters sound impressive, as if they were new monuments of technology. But beneath that shiny surface, a scary question rises. Where's the profit? If growth only comes from spending, then this isn't a productivity revolution. It's an inflationary balloon painted AI. Because if you look closely, what we call progress might just be motion, a cycle of investment that feeds itself. One company builds a model, another builds a bigger one, and soon the race becomes its own reason to exist. Growth becomes theatre, bigger data centers, louder announcements, grander visions. Everyone looks busy, but busyness isn't the same as value. The show must go on, even when the stage is burning. It's a strange kind of prosperity, one that expands on paper while shrinking in meaning. The system keeps spending more just to prove it's still moving forward. But while the giants double down on size, a quiet revolution begins in the shadows. While the giants scale up, a counter-trend is quietly rising, smaller, yet smarter. In just a year, models that are tens of times smaller have achieved performance close to those giants before them. In plain terms, we're compressing expert-level capability into leaner, faster, cheaper models. This isn't just a technical shift, it's an economic one. Smaller models don't try to know everything, they specialize. Instead of memorizing the internet, they focus on the tasks that matter most. Think of them as skilled artisans rather than massive factories, precise, fast, and efficient. A smaller model can be trained in days instead of months, deployed on a laptop instead of a data center, and adapted by smaller teams instead of billion-dollar labs. In doing so, AI becomes not just more capable, but more democratic. It's the same transformation that turned room-sized computers into pocket devices, smaller, cheaper, and accessible to everyone. That's how progress quietly scales, by shrinking, not swelling. Smaller AI now delivers better marginal returns. A compact model can summarize text, classify data, even chat naturally, almost like the big ones, but at only a fraction of the cost. And in economics, that's what matters most: value per cost, not the grandeur of the spec sheet. David just beat Goliath, and this time David used less electricity. It's a quiet but powerful reminder: intelligence isn't about excess, it's about balance. While some keep chasing infinity, others find clarity in efficiency. Smaller systems force sharper thinking. They demand design, not just power. When you have less to work with, you build smarter by necessity. That's where creativity returns, in the constraint, not the chaos. It's not about who can compute the most, but who can compute enough and still make sense. But efficiency comes with its own limits, and economics has a name for that. Let's be honest, large models are still needed for heavy-duty work like multilingual translation or complex code generation. But most of the market doesn't need that. The world needs practical AI, fast, affordable, good enough. A smaller, well-tuned model can reach 90% of a giant's quality at a fraction of the price. That's the productivity paradox economics has long warned about. When scale outgrows efficiency, marginal returns start to fall. Studies show that most businesses investing in AI still haven't made a single dollar from it. Not because they're stupid, but because AI's costs don't scale like software. With software, more users cost almost nothing. With AI, every user burns power. Every question triggers a mini bill to the server. It's like hiring a genius consultant and paying them per answer. And that genius talks a lot. Many firms have already learned this the hard way. They spend millions building models that automate reports, not revenue polishing efficiency, while profits quietly shrink. What was meant to be a shortcut became a sinkhole. In chasing intelligence, they forgot economics. The irony is that even as we get closer to perfection, the payoff gets smaller. Every % of improvement costs more than the last. We thought intelligence would make decisions easier, but it's only made the decisions heavier. The more data we gather, the less confident we become about what's truly worth doing. In a world flooded with insights, clarity becomes the rarest resource of all. It's the classic curve of diminishing returns, the moment where growth turns into gravity. And that's the quiet risk of this revolution. The danger isn't failure, it's inefficiency. We might keep building smarter tools, but if they can't sustain themselves, then intelligence becomes just another luxury product, impressive, admired, but economically fragile. Because at some point, the question stops being about performance and starts being about purpose. And that's when the real test begins. Not how powerful AI can get, but how meaningful it can stay. So the real question isn't, is AI smart? It's, is AI worth it? We're watching a two-horse race on one side, massive supermodels, power-hungry and capital-heavy. On the other, small models, lean, practical, efficient, both are intelligent. But only one knows how to profit. The future of AI may not belong to the largest models, but to the most optimized ones, where efficiency becomes the true measure of intelligence. Because in the end, being smart isn't about knowing everything, it's about knowing what really matters. And if AI is humanity's ultimate test, then this exam won't be graded by IQ, but by ROI. And maybe that's the real twist: the machines we built to outthink us are teaching us something simpler. That intelligence without restraint becomes waste. The race for bigger never ends, but wisdom knows when to stop running. Efficiency is not the opposite of progress, it's the shape of sustainable progress. When we finally understand that, we'll realize the smartest model isn't the one that learns the most, it's the one that costs the least to understand. That's when the story stops being about AI and starts being about us. Because the future of intelligence isn't about size, it's about sense. And maybe the real upgrade humanity needs isn't smarter machines, but wiser choices. Because if bigger isn't the answer, then maybe it's time to ask what is. Stay tuned. The next question might change how we measure intelligence and value. If that makes sense to you, you're already ahead of the next revolution.